Welcome, friends. Welcome back to the Non-Traditional Podcast.
We out here.
We are still here, believe it or not. Episode 3 is here. Jen, how's your week been?
Good. I wear wigs now.
What?
Yeah, I wear wigs. Or
I'm sorry.
I should have wigs.
For the listener, we record our podcasts on Zoom, and as Jen is saying she wears wigs, she's clearly not wearing a wig. So I'm like, what?
Yeah, in the general sense of the statement, I am someone who is known to wear a wig.
Okay, please explain more. Is this new?
This is new, but I can't tell you any more than that. So you had asked how my week was, and so I wanted to let the people know that I do own and frequent a wig.
I'm just saying that that's a little too much of a tease. Like, you can't just say like, oh, I wear wigs now, and then it's like, tune in next week.
That's exactly it. And really do stay tuned, folks, to all the social medias, because you're really in for a treat.
Okay, fine. I'm gonna let it go.
Okay, how was your week?
How was my week? What was this week? This was a busy week. This was one of the weeks where on Monday I was like, is it Saturday yet? So it was a very busy week. Has been a very busy week so far. A lot of random work stuff. I haven't really done anything fun.
Tell me how somebody that ain't got no job says a lot of random work stuff. That I would like somebody to explain that to me. But it's like Friday. How you get fired on your day off?
I mean, first of all, this podcast is my job. Hello.
Yeah, that's
how
true.
dare you? This
full-time podcaster.
Full-time podcaster. That's my job now.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been doing a lot of that, but I think the highlight of this week was this episode that we're about to share with you. Jen, do you want to tell our audience what we did this week?
Oh my God. What a great episode. Y'all, this week we interviewed Alison Roman, chef extraordinaire.
You heard that right.
Cookbook author and friend of the pod, Alison Roman.
We can actually say that. Alison Roman, friend of the pod, So Alison, she has a couple of cookbooks. She wrote the cookbook, Nothing Fancy and Dining In. She also has a popular segment on YouTube at the New York Times cooking section. She's done a few great recipes. My personal favorite is the cauliflower pasta. I make it
for me.
I make it all the time. It's it's my go-to.
Well, now I don't feel special because I had thought that was the first and only time you made that. So let's run it back. Let's run it back.
I only make the cauliflower pasta when I'm having dinner with Jenn. It's such a special dish.
Right. This was such a great episode. I think that we were both really geeked to talk to her, and she was so sweet and really candid, to be honest, which I know she's known to do. But we talked a lot about scarcity culture and how that can affect you in the industry. And when you really get to talk to somebody one-on-one or face-to-face, quote unquote, on Zoom, you get to know them as a person and not just their actions. And it was really great to kind of like dig in with her. What did you think? No,
same. And the thing is, I think we have a different relationship because I've followed Alison longer than you have.
Wow.
And
drag me.
Nothing personal. I'm just saying that I'm the super fan, No, but seriously, it's like I followed her for a while. Things that drew me to her were not her cooking at first, but her personality. Like, she seemed like every girl I would walk by in Brooklyn or friends of mine. She seemed so down to earth. I really loved her nail polish. Like, these are the little things that drew me to her first. Mm-hmm. And she just happened to have baller recipes. I was like, wow, 2 for 1. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it was really great to finally talk to her in person and have her live up to that idea of what you think she is. She is actually a very, lovely, thoughtful person who's funny and, irreverent sometimes, and just, like a cool chick.
Down. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I loved it. I think you guys will really love it too. So let's jump in. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the Non-Traditional Podcast. We start the podcast the same way. What was your earliest memory of what you wanted to be when you grew up?
My earliest memory of what I thought I wanted to be was definitely a veterinarian. And that was, I think, before I understood that there was a medical component to it. I thought it just meant you got to hang out with animals and take care of them. That was definitely like the path that I thought I was going to go on. And once I realized that it was essentially like going to medical school, I was like, I don't know that that's for me. But yeah, that was probably the first iteration of like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, once you realized the medical component and you were like, nah, did you have the next thing, like what you thought, okay, I need to pay rent. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. So basically like for context, like in high school, I hated high school. I didn't have a great experience. Anyone who says that they had the best high school experience, I don't trust them as an adult. I'm like, no, it's not right. Basically, I sort of only was interested in going to college once I thought my friends were going to college. Once I realized everybody was leaving, then I was like, oh, maybe I'll go to college. And my parents were like, okay, well, maybe you stay close to home for the first 2 years and then transfer if you really want to go.
Right.
Because at first I was like, I don't really want to go. And career things were always more intriguing to me than, say, college things. Like I really wanted a job. Like I wanted to like go to work. So I was in college. I was in school. I was studying like my classes were hilariously all over the place. It was like creative writing and Eastern religion and jazz history and like political science and like none of the things that
came together, right?
Yeah. But so, and when I was away for school, I started cooking a lot for myself, just to feed myself. And then I started reading cookbooks a lot and kind of just found myself like very jazzed by that idea that I could spend my time not just learning, but also like making something that I could eat and also being creatively fulfilled. So probably I was around 18 when I kind of had those two things click for me of if I'm going to spend my time doing something, I'm not afraid of doing the hard work, but I really want to be fulfilled by it, which is like a very spoiled attitude, I guess. But I was just like, oh no, I'll work hard, but I just want to make sure that I'm like really enjoying it.
Right. But I mean, that is the dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. If you want that, it's not spoiled. Now, explain to me how a recipe goes viral. Like, there's got to be something more you're bringing to the table here, like that's special about you that we see. I know Anastasia, one of the first times we actually talked about making this podcast, she made me your cauliflower pasta. And so like, I get it from like a taste level, but I'm wondering how it just blows up like that.
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about that recently. How things become popular in that way in general. I think part of it is like me living alone and being glued to my phone and being like, oh, I'm going to like promote the hell out of this. But I also just think that there's something nice about making something that works and that tastes good and you feel proud of, right? Like the picture looks the same as your dish. It tastes how you want it to. You didn't spend $1 million. You could like buy all the ingredients at like your corner store. Like it just feels easier. And I think that makes something more accessible. Like the more accessible something is, I think it increases the odds of being popular. But yeah, I feel like I spent a disordinate amount of time thinking about like, okay, well, what is it about these recipes? Because otherwise, like I can't try to do it. Otherwise it never works.
Right.
But I do think it's also like, yeah, the more popular I become in whatever regard, like the more popular a recipe will become. And, people are like, oh, like what changed about your recipes that now they're becoming popular? And I was like, nothing. My recipes 5 years ago were also really good, but no one knew who I was.
Nobody knew me. Yeah. And then when you're like cooking when you're filming cooking, how much downtime are we talking here? Like, are you like chopping up with the camera guy? You're like dropping noodles on the floor? Like, what's that look like?
It is like very what you see is what you get.
Okay.
I mean, obviously they do a lovely job editing of like some of the things, but if I mess up on camera, it's actually important to me that they don't edit that out because and sometimes they do just for timing and like it doesn't make sense logistically. But there's like one video where I was like searing short ribs or something, and I walked away from the camera to go do something else and came back and they were like very dark, like burned. Basically, which I actually don't mind. Like I kind of love like very well done on the outside.
Like a crispy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like give me the crispy bits on the outside, even if it's like a little over, who cares?
Yeah.
And And I was like, let's like make sure we leave this in, because I want people to know at home that if they do that, that they're not like panicking or throwing away this expensive meat, that they're like, oh, you know what, it'll actually be fine. It's going to get braised for a really long time in the oven. You won't be able to tell visually, and it's not going to impact the taste. So we're gonna move on, you know? But yeah, it's like very much like they show up, we start cooking, they film the whole thing, and that's it. And then we eat it. And so those days are very heavy on like the snacking. And I feel like, you know, my aunt in New Jersey, who's like shoving me out the door with containers of food every time I visit, where she's like, take all of this food. I'm like, where am I going to put it? But my refrigerator is microscopic, and I simply can't like stash 4 dinners worth of food in there at one time. So either we eat it or I send it home with people. Yeah.
Oh, nice. I mean, you've kind of talked about this a little bit, but I feel like what draws people to your style of cooking is the accessibility of it. You just seem like, oh, she's my friend and she's making a dish, so let's cook it. Because I remember one of my favorite videos that you put up on Instagram wasn't even a recipe that you did, but remember when the Popeye sandwich the chicken sandwich was like the thing?
Yes. And by the way, this is the second time I've talked about that sandwich today, just so you know. I literally was just talking about it. So yeah, go ahead.
You had that like little review with the guy on the stoop. And I was like, but this is what I would do. I would be sitting on my stoop with my buddy, like reviewing a chicken sandwich. So I think from Popeyes. But is that something you actively try to do in not only your cooking videos, your recipes, your cookbooks, to make it accessible and to almost put a lot of what your personality is into recipes and videos?
Yeah, I think that it goes back to that person who was 18 that was like, I don't want to do it if it can't excite me or bring me joy. And I feel like I noticed a lot of, like, for me as a consumer of recipes or cookbooks or food media, like I kind of saw, I didn't see anyone like me, or I couldn't relate to them, or I felt like it was too serious or too precious or too fussy. And I felt like that was really alienating to a lot of people. It made them feel like, well, I can't cook. Like, you're a professional, you can cook, but I can't cook. And there was like this whole chef culture where it was like, chefs are the professionals and everyone else is an amateur. And like, here's how to do it like a pro. And I felt like while people were getting excited about food, I don't really feel like their confidence was increasing about them making it themselves, which is really important to me. And because of like the trajectory, it kind of just, it feels like it happened really quickly, but it didn't. Like, I've been doing this for like 15 years. So it's been just like, in my opinion, like a pretty slow and steady build. And I think that just being myself every step of the way, like it never occurred to me to not be that way.
Right.
Like it wouldn't feel right to me. And like, that's for better or for worse. I think that authenticity is a gift and is one of the only things that can set you apart, especially now when content is like capital C content and everybody is, you know, fighting for the attention and the, you know, cauliflower pasta is great, but like, I'm probably not the first person to combine those ingredients or like talk about how good cauliflower is with cream or whatever. But like, I think a lot of it is connecting and by being yourself. And that doesn't mean I'm for everyone, because I'm definitely not, but I feel like that's just like regular life, right? Like, you find your people, you find the people you connect with. And yeah. Also, the guy that I ate the Popeye sandwich with, I did that video with him. He turned out to be like a very famous bike messenger, and I had no idea. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, I know that guy."
Wait, there are famous bike messengers?
Yeah, I guess in New York there's like a bike messenger scene, and there's some people
That's such a hipster thing. Oh my god,
it was hilarious. I was like, "Oh my god, you are way more famous than I have no idea."
There we go.
Awesome. I have to look him up.
To go back a little bit, I just want to like get through your career trajectory. You go to college, you really love cooking and doing that. Did you finish college or did you go into a job?
I did not. So I was doing classes. I moved to Santa Cruz for a while after I was in Santa Monica doing classes there, and then decided to move back to LA like 2 years into school, and was going to move back to LA, get an apartment, get a job. And well, the original plan was actually to go to culinary school. So I was going to drop out of college to go to culinary school, which felt like a more even trade. But I went to speak to one of the chefs at the restaurant that I wanted to work at. And I said, hey, I'd love to work part-time for you when I'm not in school, but I'm going to culinary school. And he's like, I'll save you the 40 grand and like suggest that you don't go. Like, I can teach you as much as I can teach you. And, you know,
that person when I tried to go to college.
Yeah. Well, cause he was very real with me, and he's like, most people also, he like looked at me, and I was like this 19-year-old lady knocking on the back of the door, just being like, I want to work in a restaurant. And he's like, okay. Cause working in restaurants is hard. And, you know, I think that most people that go to culinary school spend the $40,000. Now it's even more, I'm sure. They enter into a job that pays them $7 an hour at the time. And it takes them 3 years to climb up the ranks to like make a decent living. And it's really hard work. It's really long hours. It's pretty brutal. And I think most people are like, wow, I wish I had known. So it wasn't like he was saying don't ever go, but it would behoove you to come check out the restaurant scene and see if it's even something you want.
Right.
Which I thought was really smart. And, you know, I wish that more opportunities existed like that for like job experience before people were like, I'm committing to this. And then you get there and you're like, whoa, what? No.
What have I committed to? Exactly. Yeah. Like I work in the film and television business, and I did go to a 4-year college and I finished my degree. But once I started working, I realized like I could have just started. I could have, you know, I don't use my degree in any way in my job. And part of me wishes that I could have had the opportunity where someone just says, hey, come on a set and work as a production assistant. Don't need to go to college. I mean, I do have to say my college career was very formative. Like I loved it a lot, but there's always that balance where you're sort of like, do I need to spend $100,000 going to school? Exactly. Yeah. But that's how much it costs.
Yeah. And in my later life, you know, like fast forwarding, I think it became like a huge source of insecurity that I didn't graduate college because I wanted to be a writer. That was sort of when I was going to school, I was like, okay, I could be a writer maybe one day, but not like a journalist. I didn't really know what that meant. But then like now feeling like that is a medium that I use as part of work, I constantly feel like shame for not having gone to school. So it just kind of, there's like a grass is greener, and there's like, yeah, you feel like you didn't, you know, take a different path to, you know, you spent the money that you shouldn't have, or this, that, and the other, or you're like, oh, do I really belong here? I don't have the formal education. And so there's like, you know, always feelings wrapped up in that. But so I ended up working at this restaurant, and I never went back to school. I didn't go to culinary school, and I didn't go back to college. Because I fell into it and I loved it. And when I first began cooking, I was very, very, very bad at it. And like I wasn't like a savant stepping into the kitchen and they're like, who's this girl genius? Like it was very much like, who is this person and why is she here? She needs to go. She's cost us money and time, and is like, you know, I was causing more work for other people because they would give me a job and I would fuck it up, and then someone else would have to do it.
Yeah.
So you actually may have just answered my next question, which is a question that we ask all of our guests, which is kind of a time that you failed or outwardly you thought, you know, man, I'm messing up, or I lost this job or whatever. And that brought you to your current greatness. Like, do you feel like if you hadn't messed up so many dishes that you would be where you are? Or, you know, is it something where you're like, I really had to power through all those like failures?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I am like the failing. I feel like failing is it's like a naughty word, you know, and I'm trying to like rebrand. Yeah, but it is like it has so much weight, right? And I think that like somebody thinks of themselves as a failure, like that's it. That's like the end of something. And I truly think that like every time that I have felt that I have made an irreversible mistake or done damage to something, be it like spilling 12 quarts of cocoa powder all over the storage room floor and like being scared of, or like leaving my job to take one that I hated and feeling like I threw my career away, or like, you know, embarrassing myself with really stupid comments that I've made publicly. Every time that I have experienced these things, I'm like, the stakes just keep getting higher and higher, right? Like no one knows about the cocoa powder. No one knows how bad that I cried myself to sleep every night because I quit the job. But like more recently, everyone knows like when you mess up. And I think that it feels worse, but it is also a better, stronger, and more intense opportunity for growth and progress. Like I truly believe that. And I think that I can't think of any one moment in my life, even the really bad ones, that I felt like that I regret having happened. And I think that that's an important perspective to have. And I'm trying to continue that perspective.
Yeah.
I just being like, it's an opportunity to do things differently. And I think things break for a reason. I think things blow up for a reason. And sometimes you got to burn down and you got to start over. I think people there's so much pressure, especially with career and work, especially now, to have it all figured out and to like start your own business. And 6 months later, you have like a successful, profitable business that you're like thriving in. And you're like, well, wait, I just started doing this. Why is the expectation that? Because things move so fast now that there's just no patience.
Yeah. You always have to capitalize on the moment. Like you're in your moment.
Yeah.
And your perspective is a common thread we're talking to a lot of people in different industries of varying different successes. And it really is a common thread. Like people do not like that word failure. And I'm learning that. I'm like, because it really isn't. If you think about it and you grow enough, you fall enough and you grow enough, you realize it's not a failure. It is an opportunity. And as hard as that might be in the moment, it truly is. And you just have to kind of have that perspective. So I appreciate you for showing up for that moment.
Yeah. And I think that I wish that there was more discussion around that topic, which is I'm grateful for you guys for having this podcast, because it's like, you know, there's like, it's like, especially with women, it's like really wrapped up in shame and like failure to excel. And we have one shot. And it's like, well, no, we don't have one shot. And we don't,
that's scarcity culture.
Exactly. Like there's only so much. And if I don't like get my piece of it right now, then what? And I think that that's also like what got me personally into a lot of trouble, is that mentality of feeling like I had spent my whole career like climbing to the top and like being the underdog and feeling like the underdog, that I didn't even realize that I wasn't, and that I had like responsibility and like actual power.
That's a word right there. Ooh, that's a word.
Yeah. Yeah. What's
the timestamp on that?
Yeah. But again, like what an amazing opportunity, right? To like take something and being like, wow, that is not working for me or for anyone. And like, let's do something else.
Why do you, I mean, you say you started at a restaurant. Why did you not open a restaurant or become a chef? Why did you go towards writing, which is what you do now? You create recipes and you have 2 cookbooks now.
Yeah. So I worked in restaurants for almost 7 years and kind of climbed the ranks, did the thing, started off in like a windowless room, like literally with a paintbrush, putting like a gold piece of thing on like an eclair for 8 hours straight. It was hilarious. And then, you know, was eventually like a sous chef and then a chef, and I was writing menus and I was training people and I was a teacher and it's really challenging. And it occurred to me around year 5 of working in restaurants that I didn't want to own my own restaurant, because I kind of saw time after time after time, like what went into that, and feeling like I was getting fatigued with the rhythm of feeding people in that way. And it was like, you do this like really theatrical, intense physical performance every night, and you cooking your heart out and you feed people that you never see or meet. You clean up, you go home, and you do it again the next day. And for a while, that's really addicting, because it does almost feel like theater performance, right? You're like, it's like this thing, and okay, it's almost service time, and then you have like peak service, and then you wind down, and it fills you with this adrenaline. I think people get really addicted to that, which is why people like working in restaurants. But ultimately, I kind of became a little disillusioned with that, especially as like a business model, seeing how financially that was such a struggle. And also I wanted to have a bigger reach. I really enjoyed the teaching aspect of cooking. Like when we got new hires in, I loved to teach them why things are done the way they are, why we do things the way we do here. What makes a good this, what makes a bad that, like why you should do X, Y, and Z. Like that to me was always the most fulfilling part. And so it kind of started getting the wheels turning of like, maybe a restaurant isn't the best place for me, but surely there's another way that I could remain in food and teach people. And I didn't really have the cookbook part figured out yet, but that was sort of the first sort of hint of me thinking, okay, this could be something else, not working in a restaurant, because I also was like, I don't also want to work for someone else my whole life.
I watched you cooking with John Lovett the other day. What was that like? I love him.
My gosh. Cooking is putting it generously. He is so funny. He's like, I don't cook at all. And I was like, this should be interesting. And he was not lying. But like, that to me is my greatest joy. And I love doing that. I love like looking in your kitchen and being like, why do you have only plastic spatula utensils that you've obviously never used? Like, one's in this drawer, one's over here. Like, what is your kitchen? What are you doing here? And kind of figuring out like how to best encourage them. Like if you have the right tool, you're going to have a better experience cooking. If you put it in the right place, you're going to use it more often. You know, like little things being like, you don't like cooking because it's a hot mess in there, or you think that it should be more complicated than it has to be. And oftentimes when I cook with people, especially that are sort of beginners, let's say, and we finish a dish, they're like, that's it. I'm like, well, what else do you want to do something else? Like we could do some other stuff to it, but like it's probably pretty delicious the way it is. How surprised you can be when you make something and you're like, oh, I made that, you know, and without feeling like the stress or the shame of like, you know, people are always like, how do I cut this onion? I'm like, well, you can cut like this or like this, and no one's going to inspect the slices. That's the beauty of not working in a restaurant, because trust me, there was like a period in restaurants where like you cut stuff and somebody comes over to literally like look at what you're doing, and if they find something wrong, they'll throw the whole thing out and they'll start over. And you're like,
I was never a chef, but I was a server for like 8 years. So a lot of details like that. We were like, this is not real life.
It is not real life. Yeah. When you watch the like restaurants on TV, I'm always like, that's not what's actually going on.
Right.
No, you did not do your research.
What does cooking look like for you with a partner? Like, do you like to cook for somebody, or are you kind of like, hey, like I'm off the clock now, like you're cooking for me?
So I am single, and I sort of had like, after cooking for so many people where it didn't work out, or like quickly after, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that for you. You know, it's like, I made sort of a rule that I wouldn't do it anymore until we were like very serious. And now in quarantine, it's obviously very hard to meet people, but intellectually, I know. Yeah, it is rough over here. I'm
like, should I be swiping right now? I guess you can't swipe. You're too famous.
No, I try, but people are like, but somebody was like, oh, I made your tomato poached fish. And I was like, no, just X out. No, that is not going to work for me.
I gotta go.
I'm like, you've never cooked in your life.
Throw the whole phone away.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that lately. But I think intellectually, I'm like, I want someone to do something for me. I'm off the clock. But I really do think that part of my love language, or the way that I show affection or care, is by cooking for people. And if I like you, I want to cook for you. And that includes like new friends and like partners and sex dates and stuff, you know, where you're like, I want to, like, this is how I show that care for you. And, it's also, I realized that a lot of why I enjoy cooking, especially when you like have people over, so to speak, is because it occupies your brain and your hands in a different way. Like if I had a date over and we just had to like sit on my couch and talk, I would die. I'm like, I'm going to go over some chicken real quick if you want to watch me do that, because that gives me like a task to do something. And then I feel like there's something we can do after. And by that point, there's been some wine, but like, the anxiety that I feel when there's just like one other person in my apartment where we have to have a conversation, I want to sink into the floor. I'm
crying. That's so good. That is so honest.
Yeah. I think like being like, people are always like, oh, you should come in and hang out with us in the other room. I'm like, no, I'm in the kitchen. I'm busy. And I think that just gives me something to channel that frenetic energy into.
Yeah. So what sort of advice would you give to someone who maybe wants to go down the road of somehow joining in the food industry? Be it either work in a restaurant or maybe take a path that you did, create recipes, write a cookbook kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that it's a really cool time for that right now, because there are so many jobs that didn't previously exist in the food space. There are, right now, I'm generalizing right now because right now quarantine time's a bit challenging, because a lot of the jobs that did exist are not there right now because there's no like photo shoots or video shoots happening. But I think that, you know, cooking as much as possible on your own and for yourself is really important. And something that I do if I feel the need to cook or the desire to do something or to bake, like, and it's because it's just me, I'll bring the food to somebody. Like you don't have to like be always, you know, like filling your house with or apartment with stuff. But I think that it's just practice, and it's like anything. Mm-hmm. There's certain things that I still make where every time I make it, I consider it a contest with myself. There's certain foods where I'm like, this, like roast chicken, pie crust, and biscuits are like 3 things that every time I make, I'm like, this is going to be the best one that I've ever made. And sometimes it's not, you know, but it still gives me something to work towards. Like there's a long list of things that I have not perfected, but is exciting for me to keep trying. And I think doing that will help you sort of define your own cooking style. Because following recipes are great and I think very helpful for people. If you have the creative impulse to kind of create something new or try to, then letting yourself freestyle from those recipes, wander around the supermarket, like things that will kind of jog your inspiration rather than looking at something. Because once you see something, it's very hard to unlearn that, which is why I actually don't read that many cookbooks, because I get nervous that I'll be too like influenced by something and I want to keep it like pure.
Interesting.
You know, I think that logistically speaking, you know, finding out the people that you'd want to work with or for, depending on your level, and reaching out to them, you know, finding out their information, seeing if they have a website. If they have a website, they probably have a contact email, which is likely a better option than the DMs, which can be packed and crowded and like challenging for people. I'm sure, you know, like just like sorting through that can be like, wait, did I get that message from someone? Where is it? I can't find it. It's a mess in there. It's not, Instagram is not built for that type of communication. So finding the email of people, writing to them, offering to like, can we get coffee? Can we have a Zoom date? Can we, whatever. I get reached out.
You get reached out to.
Yeah. And I try to meet with them if they're in New York, and if not, we'll have a phone call and just, you know, if there's information that you can get from people that are doing what you want, you should ask them for it.
Right.
Because the resources available that are public are pretty scarce, unfortunately. I am trying to figure out how to do that better for other people in like a more public way, like have resources available and make it feel like less of a reach for someone who's just starting out. Because my path was so weird and windy that that path doesn't probably exist now, just in the same way that somebody starting out now, their path didn't exist when I was their age. So knowing that is also really cool, and like not getting frustrated with that. I think like embracing that is really important. And like just the reaching out, and you'd be surprised how many people will respond.
I have been. Like we just started this.
Yeah, we were like, we ain't nobody. She called us back. I was like, all right.
Who's not calling you back?
We were like, Alison Roman wants to talk to us. Okay.
We have 0.0 followers. Like, I don't understand.
You ain't nobody.
That's also like,
Anywho.
I predict the downfall of social media. I think that people are going to reach a mass like frenzy of they will have had it. And I think that because of quarantine, that's the only place people are living. And so it was really helpful. And now people are just like, yes, no, thank you. And I think that focusing on other platforms, like having a podcast, like doing these other things, is going to prove to be so much more valuable and impactful, because it's like, instead of scrolling endlessly on a thing, you're like, you know what, I'm just going to listen to like the 5 podcasts I want to listen to. I'm going to watch like this thing or read this thing. And I'm hoping anyway, like fingers crossed, but I think that like there's too much importance put on social media. And there's like this view that if you don't have a ton of followers, that you're never going to make it because who will care? And it's like, if you're doing good work, people will find you and they will find the work. I truly believe that.
Fingers crossed.
Another question we've been asking all of our guests is, what does abundance mean to you?
I have also been like reflecting on this a lot, because I think that, again, going back to what I was saying earlier, I think that I spent so much of my life in my career, like working towards something and feeling like I was really struggling to get it, and that it was not enough, and that if I got something, well, that was great, I need the next thing. And like really failing to look around me and actually appreciate the stuff that I had, and like actually appreciate, like in often cases, a lot of it was abundance, and a lot of it is more than I could do with like more than I needed. And I think that, and I'm definitely not talking monetarily, I'm just talking about resource wise and like privilege wise and connections wise. Like I feel, because I've been in this for so long, that I have so much around me. Like I think that abundance for me is like it just has nothing to do with money. It just doesn't, because all I wanted from my career, like my whole life, when I was like working in restaurants and just starting out in magazines, was like I wanted to be able to pay my rent every month without overdrafting my account. That was my goal. I was never like, I want like the second home and to like buy an apartment and do all this. Like I had no goals other than to just like make it. and to like be able to like go shopping if I wanted to like buy a cute outfit. Like they were pretty small financially. And, you know, like, but for me, it was always more important to have autonomy, to have creativity, to have control over that creativity. And to be able to like truly be an authentic version of myself, even if that meant less success. Like that to me would be like the best possible case scenario.
So you are living in abundance right now.
I really am. Yeah. It's like, it's been so many like very quick perspective shifts and like really, and I've also like never not worked. Like I've never taken time off. I'm like always feel like I'm working, and right now I'm like kind of not. And it feels really good because I'm able to pay attention to so much other shit. I'm like reading books that like I didn't have time for before. And I'm like seeing people that I like going to things that are important to me and engaging with people on other issues that are not like media or food related, and feeling so much more fulfilled as a person. So I think that that's also important for people pursuing their career to acknowledge that like that can't be it.
Yeah, a lot of New Yorkers especially. I know the world is on pause, but a lot of New Yorkers specifically are like, I'm just glad I don't have to walk up subway stairs anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
I am missing those steps in my daily like life though. I'm like, oh, I looked at my phone, it's like, you took 3 steps today. And I was like, oh, 3 steps. Interesting.
I don't miss subway steps. I let the record state I do not miss subway steps.
Well, Alison, you don't know, but you know, we're trying to get Jenn to run a marathon, which she is going to.
Wait, what kind of marathon?
No marathon. That's what kind of marathon? No marathon.
Did you just start running?
No, I am not running anywhere. This is sabotage. We have released 2 episodes, just so you know a little bit about this little baby podcast. We have released 2 episodes, but somehow I said something random about a marathon, and now it's taken flight, and it's so ridiculous. Social media is out of control.
I think that you should.
So my friends won't. Oh, stop.
See, Alison says you should run a marathon.
5K is like 3 miles. I just learned.
Yes. What did I say, Jenn? I'm like, we should run a 5K.
5K. If you guys run a 5K, if we find one that happens in a time that we can do, I will do it with you. No questions asked.
You know you're being recorded.
I started running. I like will run 2 miles like walking half the time. But like that said, though, I felt so proud of myself. So I'm pulling that with you.
Right. Well, I have a very, very short-term memory, so you know I'll forget all of this as soon as.
All I'm saying is that now we have Alison Roman on board running a 5K.
We're doing a 5K. We have like 5 years to train because who knows when they're going to allow us to do that again. So this is not like tomorrow. Don't worry.
Stop it. Stop it. The aliens are totally coming next month. That's where we're at right now. That's where we're at in 2020. Oh my goodness. Alison, this was awesome. Thank you so much for being on the pod.
Thank you
really
so much. Thank you for starting this pod. And can't wait to watch the baby pod grow into a big, strong pod.
Guys, so Alison Roman is running a 5K with us.
Let's move forward immediately. Let's go. Let's just like run past this. No.
I just want to say that the only thing I took from that interview was that Alison Roman was going to run a 5K with us.
She played me. She dug in and said she's going to do it with us. So now I have to do it, which is ridiculous.
And did you know we have a hashtag now?
We have a hashtag?
We have a hashtag.
What is it?
Hashtag Munzathon.
I can't. Who did that? Was that Sarah?
That was Sarah. Thank you, Sarah, for dropping in. And if you want to know exactly how to spell it and everything, I'm going to drop it in the show notes. But we have a hashtag, people.
Sarah is my oldest friend. And I do mean old. Like, she is old. So she don't know what she's talking about. And she doesn't even know how to make a hashtag. So let's go past that. But
Sarah, I'd like to apologize on Jenn's behalf.
This was such a great episode. Man, I really, you know what? I don't want to gas myself, but that abundance question is on point. Not because of me, but because of the answers that our guests have given. I've been so inspired every time. And there is definitely a common thread in our guests and like what abundance means. So hopefully you guys kind of grabbed from that. But I really do get geeked on that because it's so important to me to know what makes people feel like they have a full life. It helps inspire me and find out what I might want to have an abundant life. So shout out to Alison and how she kind of just like nailed
exactly. And it's, we also have a constant thread with the failure answer.
Mm-hmm.
We do. And it's so interesting because we have talked to different people in different industries that you wouldn't think cross paths or would have the same sort of answer to that sort of question. But it's really nice to see how they treat failure and how maybe we can take from that, where failure is probably not, it's definitely not the end of the road.
Mm-hmm.
It can actually be just the beginning,
right. And it's strange. None of these guests, as far as we know, none of them know each other, and they have such similar answers to their unique experiences. And it really is inspiring because I'm getting old now too, like Sarah. And
Wow.
I have also been learning that, I'm looking back on some of the first job I was ever laid off from. And I'm thinking like, I literally left New York City. I was so devastated. Meanwhile, that company dissolved within like 6 months. So it wasn't about me, but I was so
no.
And those are the kind of things where if you do choose to look at that as an opportunity instead of a failure, you can really thrive. And where were these people 10, 15 years ago? Because I needed help.
But we have them. But we have them now. We have them now. This is the reason why we created this podcast, so we can, listen to them and pick their brain and learn from them. So I hope you're learning from them, our audience, our friends. And yeah, we did not get any questions this week. But again, if you have any questions for us, if you want to know more about our methods, how we interview our guests,
if you know what pajamas Anastasia is wearing right now while we film the pod, then I'll let you know. Should I take a screenshot? I'm going to take a screenshot because I haven't called you out yet. And I really wanted to say something for like an hour.
I am so hurt.
They're really
Sarah.
Cute. They're really cute.
Sarah, I feel your pain, Sarah.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine being my best friend for 20 years?
No, actually. I cannot. Why would you do that? You actually took a photo.
Yeah, because you're so cute.
No, I
can't wait to post this on the Instagram.
You best not.
Anastasia would actually literally kill me.
I would come to your house. In the coronavirus, you know what? I would come to your house.
You'd burn my whole computer. This has been such a fun week, and I'm so proud of us. So I hope you guys really enjoyed. Please ask questions. Hit us up on Instagram. Email us. Sign up for our newsletter, and we will see you next week.
Bye, guys. Non-Traditional is produced and edited by me, Anastasia.
And our theme song is Wildfire by Esabalu, and you can find it wherever you purchase music.
You can find us on Instagram at that's NONE_traditional, and Twitter at TraditionalPod.
Subscribe to our newsletter on our website and keep up to date on all things non-traditional.